I'm sitting in my living room this morning drinking coffee and watching the birds in my small yard, and I keep thinking about another yard I should be watching. A bigger yard with the oak tree my father planted in 1962, the vegetable garden my mother tended for 40 years, and the house where I thought I'd spend my final years. That house is 3 miles away, and my younger brother lives there now. Not because my parents left it to him, but because he found a way to take it from me. I'm Walter, and I'm 82 years old, and 5 years ago I lost the house I'd expected to inherit my whole life. Not to taxes or medical bills or market crashes, but to my own brother's lies and legal maneuvering. Let me tell you what happened, because family and money can bring out the worst in people, and sometimes the people you trust most are the ones who hurt you deepest. The house on Elm Street was my childhood home. My parents, Robert and Mary, bought it in 1958 when I was 17, and my brother Danny was 14. It was a modest 2-story colonial with 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and that big backyard where Dad grew tomatoes and Mom hung laundry on the line every Monday morning. I was the older son, and from the time I was young, my parents always talked like I'd inherit the house someday. Not in any official way, but in the way families talk about these things. "When you take over this place, Walter," Dad would say when we were fixing the front steps, "you'll need to remember to reseal this deck every few years," Mom would tell me when she was teaching me about home maintenance. Danny was different from me. He was the charming one, the smooth talker, the one who could convince our parents to let him stay out late or borrow the car when I'd been told no. He was also the one who moved to California after high school and barely visited for 20 years. I stayed local. I married my wife Patricia in 1962, bought a house 4 miles away, and raised 3 kids. Every Sunday, we'd go to my parents' house for dinner. Every time something broke or needed fixing, Dad would call me. When Mom got sick in the 1990s, Patricia and I were the ones who took her to doctor appointments and helped Dad manage her medications. Danny would visit maybe once a year, always with stories about his latest business venture, his new girlfriend, his plans to make it big in California real estate. He was divorced twice, never had kids, and seemed to move from one get-rich-quick scheme to another. But when he visited, he'd charm our parents completely. He had a way of making them feel like they were the most important people in the world, at least for those few days he was in town. Dad died in 2015 at age 91. He'd always handled the family finances, and we discovered that he'd never actually written a proper will. Mom was 86 and had been showing signs of dementia for a couple of years. The house automatically went to her as the surviving spouse, but Dad's death seemed to accelerate her decline. That's when Danny suddenly became very interested in family again. He started calling Mom every few days, something he'd never done before. He began visiting every few months instead of once a year. And he started talking to Mom about her will, about making sure her affairs were in order, about how much he worried about her financial security. I thought it was nice that Danny was finally stepping up as a son. Patricia warned me that something felt off about his sudden attention, but I told her she was being suspicious. Danny was our family, and family comes together during difficult times. Mom's dementia got worse quickly. By 2017, she couldn't manage her finances, couldn't remember to take her medications, and sometimes didn't recognize us. Danny suggested we should get Mom to sign a power of attorney, just in case. He said he'd researched elder care lawyers and found a good one who could help us. The lawyer Danny found was in his town, about an hour away from where Mom lived. Danny said it would be easier for him to handle things since he was between jobs and had more flexibility than I did. I was still working part-time at 69, and Patricia was caring for her own mother, so I agreed it made sense for Danny to take the lead on Mom's legal affairs. That was my first mistake. My second mistake was trusting him when he said the lawyer had advised that Mom should sign over the deed to the house right away, for tax purposes. He showed me papers that looked official, and he explained that this way Mom wouldn't have to worry about property taxes or maintenance, and the house would avoid probate when she passed away. I should have insisted on being at that meeting. I should have hired my own lawyer to review everything. I should have asked more questions. But Danny was my brother, and I trusted him. When he said the papers just formalized what we'd always planned, that I'd inherit the house, I believed him. Mom signed the papers in early 2018. Danny told me she'd left the house to both of us as joint owners, with the understanding that I'd buy out his half when the time came. He said he didn't want to be a landlord anyway, and he knew how much the house meant to me and Patricia. Mom passed away in her sleep in October 2019. The funeral was beautiful. and Danny gave a moving eulogy about what a wonderful mother she'd been. Afterward, when family and friends came back to the house, Danny pulled me aside and said we needed to talk about settling Mom's affairs. That's when I found out what he'd really done. The house wasn't left to both of us. Danny had somehow convinced Mom to sign a deed that transferred the house directly to him, with something called a life estate for Mom that ended when she died. I wasn't mentioned anywhere in the paperwork. When I confronted him, Danny had an answer for everything. He said Mom had changed her mind in her final years. He said she'd told him I already had a house and didn't need another one. He said the lawyer had advised that this arrangement would save on taxes and legal fees. He said he'd been planning to work out a fair arrangement with me, but he needed time to think about his options. I hired my own lawyer, a man named Richard Thomas who specialized in estate disputes. Richard reviewed the documents and told me the truth. Legally, Danny owned the house free and clear. The papers were properly executed and witnessed. Even if Danny had manipulated Mom or misled her about what she was signing, proving that would be almost impossible, especially since Mom was no longer alive to testify about her intentions. Your brother played the system perfectly, Richard told me. He waited until your mother was vulnerable, isolated her from other family input, used a lawyer from out of town who didn't know your family situation, and got her to sign papers she probably didn't fully understand. It's unethical, but it's not illegal. The worst part was watching Danny justify what he'd done. He convinced himself that he deserved the house because he'd been managing Mom's affairs in her final years. He claimed I'd had 40 years of benefit from living near my parents, and that it was his turn to benefit from the family property. He even suggested I should be grateful that he was saving me from the burden of maintaining an old house. I tried to fight it. Richard and I spent 6 months exploring legal options, but every avenue led to the same conclusion. Danny had been clever about how he'd structured the transfer. The only way to challenge it would be to prove Mom was mentally incompetent when she signed the papers, and that would require testimony from doctors, social workers, and family members. Even if we succeeded, it would cost tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees with no guarantee of success. Danny offered to sell me the house for its appraised value, $280,000. He said he was being generous by not charging me interest or realtor fees. But Patricia and I didn't have that kind of money. At 79 years old, no bank was going to give us a mortgage that size, and our retirement savings weren't enough to cover it. So I lost the house I'd expected to inherit my whole life. The house where I'd eaten Sunday dinners for 60 years, where I'd helped my father build a workshop in the basement, where my mother had taught my wife her secret recipe for apple pie. Danny sold some of Mom and Dad's furniture, donated some to charity, and moved his own belongings into the house where he lives now. We don't speak anymore. Danny sent me a Christmas card last year with a note saying he hoped I'd eventually understand that he'd done what was best for the family. I threw it away without reading it twice. The hardest part isn't the financial loss, though that hurts. We could have used the inheritance to help with Patricia's medical expenses, or to leave something more substantial to our own children. The hardest part is the betrayal. This was my baby brother, the kid I'd protected from bullies, the teenager I'd taught to drive, the young man I'd helped move to California when he was chasing his dreams. But maybe I never really knew him at all. Maybe the Danny I thought I knew was just the face he showed our parents when he wanted something. Maybe I was just too trusting to see what everyone else could see. That charm without character is just manipulation with a smile. I still drive by the house sometimes. Danny's painted it a color Mom would have hated, and he's let the garden go to weeds. The oak tree Dad planted looks smaller than I remember, maybe because the house itself feels smaller now that it's lost all the love that used to fill it. Patricia and I are fine in our own house. We've lived here for 57 years, and it holds plenty of good memories. Our kids visit regularly, and our grandchildren love our little yard. We're not bitter people, and we don't spend our days dwelling on what Danny did, but we are sadder people, sadder for learning that blood doesn't always mean loyalty. If you're dealing with aging parents and family inheritance issues, let me give you some advice I wish someone had given me. Get everything in writing, involve all family members in important legal decisions, and hire your own lawyer even if another family member says they've got it handled. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong, and remember that money can make people do things you never imagined they were capable of. The house on Elm Street was never really mine, I suppose. It was my parents', and they had the right to leave it to whoever they chose. But I'll always believe that's not what they intended to happen. I think they trusted Danny to do right by the family, and he chose to do right by himself instead. If this story reminds you of your own family struggles with inheritance, or if you've learned hard lessons about trust and money, I'd love to hear from you. Share this with someone who might need to hear about protecting themselves when family dynamics get complicated by estates and wills. And tell me in the comments, how do you balance family loyalty with protecting yourself legally? Sometimes the most painful lessons teach us that love and trust aren't the same thing, and we need both wisdom and paperwork to protect what matters most.